Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. Fascinating SEC matchup. Mike Elko, Texas A&M, coming off a massive win against LSU, heading on the road to play South Carolina. Now, South Carolina's coming off a bye, but they're also coming off just an absolute beatdown from given to Oklahoma. South Carolina dominating that football game against Oklahoma. Really fascinating matchup, Dill, where these two teams, they want to win in the same exact way. That is run the football and play good defense. And this game just feels like who can execute that game plan at a higher level probably wins this one Saturday night. Night game at South Carolina doesn't get much more special than that. So as a pure just college football fan sitting on my couch, fired up for this one. Now, before we get into it, as always, I think most importantly, just want to say thank you to you guys. The amount of support for these preview prediction episodes, it's been amazing. Y'all know the boys love doing it, so can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, let it fly in the comment section. 3.5-point spread, Texas A&M on the road, 3.5-point favorites. A lot of different ways this football game can go, so let it fly in the comment section. Dill, without further ado, let's get into this one. I think you got to start with this Texas A&M offense. They inject Marcel Reed into the football game, and it just looked like a different offense. At one point in that football game, they were averaging 11 yards per play when Marcel Reed came into the game. We kind of said this a couple of weeks ago. We talked about it late last night as well. Dill, he's just a better fit for this Texas A&M offense. Like, what does Texas A&M want to do? They want to lean on that offensive line. They want to lean on that run game. What quarterback allows you to run the football more effectively? It's the quarterback. That's the better athlete, and that's Marcel Reed. What does Marcel Reed bring to this Texas A&M offense going on the road against the South Carolina defense that is very, very good?
And again, especially in a game where you're playing against edge rushers of the ilk of South Carolina's,
Yeah.
I think you really like the idea of having that quarterback who can really mix it up in the run game and slow those two down, whether that's reading them, whether that's just holding them on the backside. Those type of things are really important because they're so athletic, they're so explosive. And if they're just chasing the ball down, think of that LSU game. Obviously, Nussmeier, not really a guy who's going to threaten you with his legs. They were really teeing off on him. They were getting after him constantly. LSU couldn't really run the ball a whole lot. When you're playing this type of game, Marcel Reed's legs and his ability to possibly slow those two down, it's such a big element of what I think can give A&M some success.
What's the biggest weapon for the South Carolina defense? It's their edge rushers. What's the best way to neutralize really good edge rushers? Just reading them. And having a quarterback that is a threat to pull it on those read option plays, that inherently is going to slow down guys like Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart, kind of take them out of the football game. And if you can do that, you give yourself a pretty good chance to have some success against South Carolina. Now, Dill, you said it before we went live, and I would agree. The difference between South Carolina and LSU on defense, South Carolina's got some dudes on the inside as well, like Tonka, Alex Hunley, TJ Sanders, really good linebacker. Significantly better linebacker play than they got in 2023. This is a South Carolina defense that's only allowing 2.8 yards per carry. That's number 6 in the country. Texas A&M wants to run the football, 10th most in the country, going up against one of the better rushing defenses that we see. It's going to be a fascinating matchup. Dill, what do you think South Carolina needs to do to slow down this Texas A&M rushing attack here?
I think it's got a lot to do with what they were able to do against Alabama, and that was just string them out. When they tried to do that stuff to the perimeter, and that's going to be a part of what I think A&M is going to want to do. Because again, South Carolina is a tough team to just run at into the teeth of them. I think again, you probably want to try to attack the linebacking play. Not that it's as vulnerable as it was last year, but it's probably easier to go at them than go after those or that group of guys on the interior. So again, South Carolina has already put on tape that they're pretty well capable of dealing with a mobile quarterback. For the most part, they did a really good job with Jalen Milroe. Honestly, if they can stop the run, that to me is where you get into what does Marcel Reed have beyond that? Because Jalen Milroe was able to get the ball going in the air a little bit. To me, I'll look I don't know that South Carolina is going to give up a zillion yards in the run game or just get mauled over by this A&M team. To me, I think, again, when you play these good defenses, you need to be really complete, and that's what I'm probably going to be looking for. What can Marcel Reed do in the passing attack?
That's where it starts. It starts with can Texas A&M get it going on the ground against South Carolina. That's where the conversation starts. But another conversation is, Dill, if you're Texas A&M, you're obviously going to have to throw the football at some point. Like, you can't just Michigan your way through this. South Carolina's team's too good. You want to throw on your terms. And what I mean by that is you cannot find yourself in those third and long situations. For as good as Texas A&M has been running the football with that offensive line, they're not as good in pass protection. So when I mean throw the football on your terms, when you're throwing the football, you want to do it not in those third and long, obvious passing situations, because you look at South Carolina, that pass rush is it's elite. They're sacking the quarterback 11.5% of dropbacks. That's number 4 in the country. They do have a very good secondary as well. If I'm Texas A&M, I probably understand that we're not going to throw the football for 300 plus yards on South Carolina, but can we hit some of those game-changing explosive plays, kind of like what you saw Marcel Reed hit last night to Noah Thomas? Like, we're not going to throw the football 50 times in this game. That's just not playing to Marcel Reed's strength. But when we do push the ball down the field, can we capitalize on some of those explosive plays? That's probably where it starts. Now,
And
Dill,
frankly, from South Carolina's perspective, it's probably how many negative plays can you generate? Because the
100%.
inherent risk you run with running that sort of read option play is if you make the wrong read or you are dealing with too athletic of a defensive end or they had the right kind of call drawn up for you. Like, that's why they were able to really slow Alabama down, that South Carolina team. That is, they had them in bad spots pretty consistently, it felt like, because they were making a lot of negative plays and drawing penalties.
Yeah.
Again, A&M, like, for the first half of that game, I know Wigman's going to take a bit of the brunt of what was going on, but they were also taking too many penalties. So you look like those things, if A&M gets in that sort of rhythm or isn't really in a rhythm and is backed up, like that to me is how South Carolina can really be a problem. And again, you look, those two defensive ends, they're going to make their plays. And if they make enough of them, they can really, I think, be a problem.
You do not want to go on the road with a redshirt freshman quarterback and consistently be in third and long, because it's going to be a long night. The South Carolina pass rush and secondary, it's just too good. Now you flip the sides until I feel like it's like we're going to have like the same conversation. Like South Carolina, they run the football 60% of the time, which is 17th most in the country. They don't have at least my personal opinion, they haven't necessarily shown that they can consistently push the ball down the field. So they're going to rely on the run game. Now, they don't run the football as effectively as Texas A&M. They only run the football for 3.7 yards per carry. That's 96 in the country. Dill, it's a very similar talking point. Like, can Texas A&M create those negative plays, put South Carolina behind the chains? Because you look at South Carolina, their biggest bugaboo right now, I believe, is maybe, the consistency of Lenore Sellers pushing the ball down the field. But I think more importantly, it's pass protection. You look at Josiah Thompson and kind of a laundry list of those guys on the offensive line. They've struggled. This will probably be the best front seven that they would have seen all year with Texas A&M coming to town. If you're South Carolina, kind of similar to Texas A&M, you can't live in those third and long situations, because that's when it can get ugly with this Texas A&M pass rush and the way they can take away the football, which you saw them do against LSU Saturday night.
And that to me is why Lenora Sellers just needs to play cleaner. I mean, at the end of the day, he is the one who's typically putting them in bad spots, it feels like, in terms like whether it's taking sacks, whether it's like those type of plays that are fumbling. Like, he's making a lot of plays that really kind of shoot you in the foot. So
he's trying to do too much at times, like a young quarterback normally does. That's kind of how I'd say it. Sorry, go on.
And honestly, there's an element of he needs to, because I still think they're trying to get Rocket Sanders more consistently going. Like, he's ripped some big runs off, but it doesn't feel like their down and down out rushing attack is quite good enough right now. And that's not only on Rocket Sanders, obviously the offensive line, young, kind of still gelling. And in that unit, it's not the best unit in the country, obviously. Yeah. So they're still trying to figure that side out. But that to me is why again, when Lenora Sellers has played pretty clean, they've been relatively effective. Like, this will never be a wildly high-powered offense, at least this year. I don't know that they have the skill positions to do it. Lenora Sellers obviously still getting his feet wet. But when he's played clean, and there's been like pockets of this season when he's done it, I think South Carolina can be pretty decent. But like, again, that a lot of it is predicated on how he's playing, because he is a big part of what they do.
And my biggest key to the game here is, can South Carolina hit some of those explosive plays? Like, you look at Lenora Sellers, Dale, as much as it has been a little bit inconsistent, he's completing 50% of his balls 20-plus yards down the field. That's a very good number. You look at Texas A&M, they're only giving up a 53% completion percentage. That's ninth best in the country. The secondary has been good. they are giving up 6.8 yards per pass attempt, which is 46th in the country. You've seen Texas A&M give up some explosive plays. Look, I find it hard to see South Carolina consistently moving the football against this Texas A&M defense, but can you find some of those explosive game-changing plays through the air? And we know Lenore Sellers can push it. That's kind of a storyline. And another thing for Texas A&M, keep Lenore Sellers in the pocket. Like, force him to operate from the pocket. That's clearly where he's less comfortable. When you let him get outside the pocket, extend plays, that's when you see them kind of burn opposing defenses with those explosives. And I think the last storyline I have is special teams. Like, I feel like this is a football game where I trust both defenses more than I trust the offenses right now. Like, can Shane Beamer dial something up? Can Mike Elko dial something up? I feel like there's going to be a play in special teams where when you don't trust the offenses as much as the defenses, those special team plays matter a lot more. I feel like it might come down to one of those games or one of those plays.
Talk about dialing up some things. Like, Shane Beamer maybe needs to dial down a little bit of what they do on special teams, because I feel like some of these fakes and when they're coming, I haven't frankly been in love with it. And they've made some plays. They blocked the punt, obviously, against LSU. But there have been some special team situations for this South Carolina team that, again, maybe they're being a little too aggressive, frankly, at times, because that one against Alabama, that would make me
So
sick.
I understand where you're coming from. It's not worked more than it's worked this year, and that can be frustrating. But that's just who Shane Beamer. He's going to live and die on that sword, and I don't think he's going to stop doing it. Even if he's listening to the boys right now, he's saying we ain't stopping doing it. And
They're just playing too good a defense, I feel like.
that's kind of where I was going with it too. Like, I'm like, you have such a good defense. You can kind of trust your defense to go get a stop and get the ball back. You don't need to steal that possession. But hey, that's who he is. That's Shane Beamer. He's going to live and die on the sword, and I respect the heck out of it. Let's get into the pick here. Texas A&M 3.5-point favorites on the road. I don't love this. I'll start. I don't love it, but I'm going to take Texas A&M. I feel like they have all the momentum. I feel like they're just getting better as a football team every single time we see them play. But I think most importantly, I trust both defenses a heck of a lot. What offense do I trust more right now? It's probably Texas A&M, because, again, you look at South Carolina, they want to run the football a lot, but they're averaging 3.7 yards per carry. That's 96 in the country. They're only averaging 4.7 yards per play. That's 118th in the country. So what offense do I think can find more plays to win this football game? I think it's Texas A&M. I don't love it, and I don't like betting against South Carolina when they go on when they're at home. But I'm gonna take Texas A&M in this football game here.
Yeah, I lean it too, and it really comes down to me the offensive line play. Like, again, I think both these defensive lines are going to be a huge problem for the opposing one. I just look. I mean, there have been moments where South Carolina's offensive lines like played so bad where it almost does feel like I don't know what their answer is exactly. Like, when you're playing that way, like, do I think South Carolina's defensive line gets the better of A&M's offensive line? I would say probably. I'm not like. Again, they're not a great pass protecting unit. They've done pretty good on the run, obviously, but a lot of that it's also been because they've been explosive on the ground, and Le'Veon Moss has been able to rip a handful of big ones. Same with Daniels and obviously Reed to an extent as well. But I just look, South Carolina's offensive line is still very concerning for me. And when you play a team like A&M, if you're not really on, yeah, you can have a lot of those negative plays and snowball into some real chaos. And that is probably my biggest worry coming into this game. And I just don't necessarily see A&M having that type of problem. Again, I don't think they dominate on offense, but I don't think they'll have as many problems.
So you're on Texas A&M as well, but the boys are both on Texas A&M. Lock it
Look
up.
at
Don't love that. Don't love when we both agree. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate y'all. Talk to you guys later. Peace.